So, good morning, class. We still have our discussion for today, and this discussion is still related to our topic yesterday. So, let's dive into our discussion for today. Before we start our lesson, we're going to have, what is it? We're going to have our own short game for this discussion, and the name of this game is word definition. The direction for this is the students need to define the words given in their own understanding. They can write their answer in a piece of paper just to widen their vocabulary in the words given. So the words that I will give to you is still related to our topic for today. So let's see, what is it? Okay, it's simile and metaphor and personification. Let's find out if you still have an idea what is this word means by our discussion yesterday. So let's start. Okay, thank you for participating in our game. So I hope you have fun for this game. So let's dive into our discussion, which still related to what? Exploring culture and history through poetry. We already discussed about, what is it? The figures of speech, such as simile, metaphor, and personification. For the definition of simile, it is introduced by such word as like and as. You have to remember, if you encounter a statement that is related to simile, your keyword or your idea or hint, it would be like and as. And next one is metaphor. Does not say that an object is like the other or act as the other, but compare the two objects as if they are one and the same. You have to remember that simile and metaphor, they have similarities in terms of comparing something, but in terms of how they execute it, simile is direct comparing using like and as, while metaphor, it is indirectly comparing each other, comparing the two objects, and they function as the same as each other. So, but it's not using like or as. Let's define next personification. So what is personification? It's an object that animals are given human qualities. If we encounter a statement related to personification, or it's things or animals that function as they have an human qualities, or they are described as basically what is a human being doing. So such thing like that. If you encounter that kind of words, your idea, it should be an object or animals that is functioning as a human. You have to remember that. Next one, we're going to discuss about imagery. It's still related on the figures of speech. It's still related in figurative language. Let's define what is imagery. An imagery is an element of the poem that uses words to appeal sense or senses. It uses simile, metaphor, and personification and other figures of speech. When you encounter imagery, it mostly take the five senses. First one is sight, and second one is sound, touch, smell, taste, or even the mental images. So if you encounter that in a specific story or in a passage, you have to identify that specific figure of speech, which is imagery. It is mostly common in novels. They use imagery just to show readers how this specific thing is happening without visualizing what is happening in that specific stories. Imagery makes us think more critically and make the statement more beautiful and creative just by using the five senses. Like what I've provided earlier, it uses sensory experience such as sight or visual, sound for auditory, touch for tactile, smell for olfactory, or taste gustatory to describe the impression of the writers and to create a vivid pictures, mental images that can explain to readers the meaning of the poem or a prose. So basically, it can be seen in a prose or a poem. When we encounter a specific poem, they use this imagery just to visualize to us what is happening in that specific poem without having a graphics or having a picture of that specific poem. Just by the use of imagery, we have an idea what is happening or how they describe that specific poem. It creates a vivid pictures or a mental images to our mind that this is happening with the use of five senses, right? So it's very important that we have an idea on how imagery works in a poem or prose because there will be times that we have to read a passage for poems and prose, and we can use our discussion or our ideas or how we've learned imagery in how we can answers the specific questions related to that poem. That's why it's really important that we learn imagery and how figurative language is using in a specific poem, prose, or even a novel. Here we have the six sensory images in literature, namely sight, which appeals to the sense of seeing. Next one, sounds, which appeals to the sense of hearing. And three, for touch, which appeals to the sense of feeling. Number four, taste, which appeals to the sense of taste. And five, smell, which appeals to the sense of smelling. And number six, motion, which appeal to the sense of seeing with another dimension that is movement. What I provided to you earlier is five senses, but actually it's six senses that we can use when we are using it for literary works, which for the last one is motion, or we're using our movement just to show how this particular thing is happening in that specific poem. Okay, let's check the examples for imagery. The first one that you can see in here is the sensory experience, and the next one is expression. As you can see, for touch, the expression is wind blew its hardest. So meaning that you can feel it. The wind, you can feel it if it blew hardest. Number two or next one is sight. Bent its head gracefully. You can see it. You can see that it bends its head gracefully. That's why you said it bends its head gracefully, because you can see it. Next one is smell. New fragrance. Can you see fragrance? No. You can smell it using your sense of smell. Next one is sight. Sun comes up. You can be sure that if you use sense of sight, you can see the sun coming up. That's the example that you have for imagery using the sensory experience and their expressions. That can also be seen in your poems. That's why if you're reading a poem, you have to identify what is the specific word that is used that is related to imagery, or even what we have learned yesterday, which is simile, metaphor, and even personification. As I told you yesterday, right, you have to read this specific poem that I provided to you, but we were just going to review it or read it again so that you have an answer for our activity. So let's start. The title of this poem is I Am Proud to Be a Filipino by Toribia A. Mano. I am a Filipino. I came from islands rippled with sun, where days are green fires and nights are warm. With moon and stars, gilding my loins is blood rich as milk. For I was born of sultans, rahas, kings, soldiers, heroes who fought to sing the poetry of freedom. My house is my land virgin, brown, wombed out of loam, volcanic rock and shells, carpeted with rice, corn, coconut, cane, trees. That rise as temple to grapple, wind, rains, mighty rivers furrowing the earth. Where I walk, my shadow is a marriage of flag. Malay, Chinese, Spanish, American, Japanese, while in my bones sleep quietly as a bright vanquish the desires of conquerors who dream of empire's gold, trade, and spice. Though a pally bred, I stand with the Asians, for my love and loyalty are as fish to the sea. I am proud of my brownness. My duty and destiny are 30 million brown men planting rice, husking coconut, throwing nets far into the Pacific, hacking mountains of iron, coal, chrome, manganese, and timber to live. We are one and the same, a moving restless caravan of dark brown skin, building a holy heritage of democracy piece by piece with our dreams, sweat, and death as a bird builds patiently twig by twig the warm brown circle of its nets. I am a Filipino. I believe in the goodness and the bounty of God. I believe in the grandeur of charity and peace as a cure for the ills of man, for I am a Christian who looks upon all men as brother whose task it is to love. I believe in my country and in the deathlessness of my flag, for its every color is a history of courage, sacrifice, death against injustice, tyranny, oppression, and hate. I believe in my people as noble keepers of faith, that all men are equal, that all men are free. I believe with verdant and sprawling mountains, hills, valleys, plains, lakes, waterfalls, river, sunset, beaches, and a generous sea. A life sovereign, wondrously happy in work, and abundant with hope for my people. I am proud to be a Filipino. Okay, great. We have read the poem about I am proud to be a Filipino, and it is great to know that this specific poem is still existing for the day. And just to be aware, our young generations, that the need or to show love for your country is still very important. It's still innate to us to love and show respect to our country. And that specific poem not only discuss the time we were our ancestors sacrificed their life for our freedom, but the poem also show that we are all the same. Whatever color we have, we are all the same. We are all equals, and we should not forget our freedom to those people who sacrifice themselves just for us to be free. And the part that I cannot forget is how the speaker, or that person who wants to share his love for his country, is he is proud, or she or he is proud of what his color. So the brownness is innate or inborn in our culture. We are naturally brown colored skinned people, and doesn't change the fact that if you're brown, and you have to be ashamed of it. You have to be proud of it, because that's our roots. That brownness of skin show many workers back in the day, showing industrious behavior in terms of farming, fishing, hiking or mountain climbing. It is very important that we are aware of how our ancestors build this courage or build this specific freedom that we have right now. So if you really understand the poem, it just show that even though there's we experience injustice, tyranny, hate in the past, or even right now, it still doesn't change the fact that we are Filipino. That specific person in that poem that's explaining that he still have a faith with his Filipino countrymen. He still have a faith that even though there's a lot of struggles that we have encountered, we still have the spirit of being Filipino. Loving our country is important. Not only back in the days, but right now. That all is modernized, all is being colonized by Western people or other culture, we still shouldn't or forget what we have started. So let's still go back to what we have started or what our ancestors started, and appreciate it, respect it, and even more show it and be proud of it, or nurture it in a way that it's still existing today. Because if we doesn't nurture our culture, our tradition, or our spirit as a Filipino, it will fade away. Your spirit as a Filipino, it will fade away. Like for example, do you guys have an idea on the tattoo artist Apo Wangod? Such thing like that. Apo Wangod is a mambabatok, which means they tattooed traditional, you can see it in their arms, like what we have back in the day when we have our rahas, sultans. They have that, the maharlikas in our country back in the day. They use that as a sign to show that they still nurture that specific culture, and anything that is still related to nurturing our culture, our history, should be implemented as of today, especially for you young minds like you should be aware of our history and our culture, and how you can preserve it, how you can pass it on to the next generation and tell them, oh, this is what we have back in the day, or what we have for our history. You should let other generation know that you are still proud of being Filipino. It's even though it's being modernized, technological, in terms of technological, we are modernized. We still not forget that there are things that should be preserved or should be remembered in our culture or in our history. Okay, guys, I hope you have learned something for today, and I appreciate you for listening in our discussion, exploring culture and history through poetry, and also about our poem, which is I Am Proud to Be a Filipino. You do not have to forget this, that even though we are modernized and more on innovative technology, we still not forget our roots. We are Filipino, natural brown skin in color, and our culture and our history are still happening today. So, what you can do as a young generation that is still blossoming in this society, you should what? You should preserve it and nurture it more and inform the next generation that this is our culture, that we are Filipino. Okay, let's go now for your seat work. Okay, your seat work the direction would be, after reading the poem, answer the following question. Write your answer in your one whole sheet of paper. Okay, the first question asked is, how are islands described in poem? Go back to the poem and see how islands described in the poem. Next one. Number 2. What are the Filipinos doing for a living according to the poem? Do you agree? Support your answer. You can see that in the specific poem. Okay, number 3. What is the cure for the ills of man according to the poem? Do you agree? Support your answer. You can go back to the poem and read it again and understand so that you can answer these specific questions. Next one. Do you think it is our duty to be proud of being Filipino? Support your answer. What do you think would be the right answer for this one? Number 5. Which Filipino trait or values described in the poem still hold true today? Which one have changed? Explain your answer. Okay, for your assessment, if you're done answering your seat work, you can go with your assessment. Let's see the direction. Read the following expression from the poem, I am proud to be a Filipino, and indicate whether it is a simile, metaphor, or personification. Write your answers on your 1/4 sheet of paper. So, we already have a seat work for this yesterday, so I think you have an idea on how you can do it. You have to just choose if the words or the statement is simile, you have to choose simile. If it's metaphor, you have to choose metaphor. Or if it's a personification. Let's check one of the items. Number 1. Girl in my loins is blood rich as a milk. Number 2. Mighty rivers are furrowing the earth. Number 3. My house is my land. Number 4. Trees rise as temples. Number 5. Trees grapple with winds. Number 6. Life is a dream. Number 7. The white mares of the moon rush along the sky. And number 8. The wind tapped like a tired man. Number 9. Speech is like a whisper of 1,000 bees. Number 10. He is a lion in a fight. What do you think is the applicable figure of speech for those specific statements? You have to identify. If it's simile, metaphor, personification, you have to write it down. Please just answer only, and if we go back to our classes, we can check your papers. Okay? Understand? Okay, great. So for that, I hope you have learned something for today, and I hope you're doing fine right now, even though we do not have a face-to-face classes. Goodbye, class, and see you next week.